Have you ever sat down to design something and you're not really sure where to start or how you're going to make an impact? Have you ever been told to think more strategically, but you don't really know what that means when it comes to being a designer? Well, it all starts with outcomes. And in today's video, we're going to take a deeper dive into that today to understand how you can leverage the language around outcomes to become a better designer. I'm James Law from Design Kindly. I'm a product and design leader with over 10 years of experience, and I'm here to help designers earlier on in their career go from being ticket takers to strategic thinkers. And today, we're gonna go over the 4 key types of outcomes and how you can get that information out of your business from your partners, from larger stakeholders, and make sure that you focus your work so that it has impact. All right, so let's talk about outcomes. You may hear a lot about outcomes in language from your leaders, from your product owners, and maybe even from your engineers. And you may think, well, how do I understand this? How do I get started? Well, I'm here to talk to you today about different types of outcomes that you can think about, and then how you yourself can extract outcomes from different artifacts in your organization, whether they be roadmaps or even data that the organization talks about, so you can help ground yourself and have effective conversations with your management and with your product team so you don't get lost in the sauce. So overall, what you need to know is that there are 4 key types of outcomes: top-line outcomes, bottom-line outcomes, outcomes that drive loyalty, and outcomes that help with risk and compliance for your organization. The very first one, top-line outcomes, are really about how a company makes money. So it's really about how your designs are going to help an organization sell more of their product, increase utilization of their service, and drive more revenue for the organization in the long run. If you work for a food company, for example, that's how your designs are going to help users find things that they want to eat and buy them more easily. If you're working in a health company, for example, that may be how you help users more simply fill prescriptions. And the more prescriptions that are filled, the more money that company makes. So again, those are called top-line outcomes. These are outcomes that help drive revenue overall for the business. And you understanding how your designs lead users to help create more revenue for an organization is critical in how you frame your designs and frame them so that you work effectively with your product teams and other associates. So the second type of outcome are bottom line outcomes. This is kind of the opposite of the top line ones, which is about driving revenue. Bottom line outcomes are really about reducing costs for an organization. And typically how an organization reduces costs is by making processes more efficient. So think about the amount of calls that may be coming in for support, or maybe per transaction, your organization has to pay a specific fee. So when we think about helping with bottom line outcomes, what we're really talking about is how your designs can help reduce costs for your organization overall. For example, if you're working in an organization where there are a lot of cases, for example, maybe things that need to be escalated, transactions that are challenged, or claims that are maybe challenged by the user, how do you design digital experiences in a way that enable the user to more appropriately self-serve perhaps, or more appropriately and self-serve via a chatbot versus calling the call center, which drives up costs? Being able to show how you've designed an interface to direct people to frequently asked questions or to a chat service is a critical way to showing how your work impacts that bottom line. Another example could be the amount of transactions that go through. Perhaps per transaction, your organization needs to pay a fee to support that. In order for you to have an impact there, your designs may want to encourage multiple products per transaction and create some level of scale so that the company does not pay as much per engagement with the user. Being able to frame your designs and talk this language with your product teams is really critical to having you show up at the table as a partner and really show them that you know what you're talking about and that you are a trusted partner in the entire design process. The third type of outcome is probably one that the designer, you, are most used to and can be a bit of a challenge with your product team, and that is loyalty metrics. Think CSAT, NPS, those scores that really help drive the user's perception of your digital product and therefore their feelings about the organization. These outcomes are a little less tangible than directly driving revenue or saving costs, but as designers, deep empathizers, we know that these are really critical to the overall success of an organization. So what's really important about loyalty metrics is that you understand what moves the needle the most through testing. You have to be very crystal clear with your product teams about why changing a pixel here or changing a button here is going to move those metrics in the right direction. This means more vigorous testing, a little less room for testing and learning because it is a vaguer metric and it's harder to convince people to invest in them. However, what you may want to consider throughout this process is not arguing so much about the specifics of where a button should go, but show a general direction and a general trend about where a design should lead overall in terms of brand and tone and general design language. If you can prove out through testing, through good research, that direction is something to believe in, then you have a case with your product teams to make small increments over time towards that visual direction or UI direction, and then prove out the CSAT and NPS gains over time. The other thing you're gonna wanna keep in mind throughout this entire process is that loyalty ultimately does drive increased revenue and trust in your digital properties so more users choose to self-serve and reduce costs. So always frame with your product teams and your managers and your other directors that even though NPS and CSAT may not result in immediate dollars and cents, if we can see those gains, you're probably gonna see the top line drivers and the bottom line drivers go as well in their correct directions. And last but not least, we have our fourth category of outcomes, which are legal and compliance-driven ones. The upside of this is that you really don't need to justify your designs in this case. Mostly legal and compliance requirements are driven by the organization itself. That means you have to do it or else you're gonna get fined. The challenge here actually is going to be accepting many compromises in your design in order to make your legal and compliance stakeholders happy. You may not like this recommendation, but as a senior leader, my recommendation to most designers is to basically take it on the chin. It's not gonna be the most beautiful design. It's gonna be a little bit wordy, but you can make gains by, again, relying on testing data. Work with your legal and compliance partners, do a design that they think is the most compliant and is the most risk adverse, and test it out. If users reject it wholeheartedly, you're gonna have a really good case with your product teams to say, if we do it this way, we're not gonna see any of those top line or bottom line outcomes we were talking before. Worse, it may impact loyalty. That way, we have some designs, we have some data to negotiate with product and our legal and compliance partners to be able to make a difference. Do not be defeated right away. Even though the process may be really frustrating, it's really important with these fourth outcomes that you stick with it, working with your product and legal and compliance partners throughout the entire process, even if it offends your creative sensibilities. All right, so that's great. You know these four types of outcomes, but what do you do if they're not really laid out for you on a piece of paper? We know in some cases, product managers don't really want to tell you their outcomes. Maybe they don't even know what they are themselves. Or maybe your design lead or your design director is just a little bit too busy to keep you up to date. What's really important is that you try to do some groundwork in this case. And by doing this groundwork and showing that you're prepared and asking the right questions with your leaders and partners, they're going to give you the data and the insights that you're looking for. So the first recommendation I would give is for you to actually take a look at your roadmap. Take a look at the product roadmap and look for terms that are repeated often and are common amongst different features that are on that roadmap. For example, maybe you'll see reduced churn, increased loyalty, increased revenue, increased engagement. Look for those words and start putting them down in your notebook, in your Figma files, in whatever you're using to keep track of why you're designing. That way, you can talk to your director or your leaders and say, hey, I noticed on the roadmap that we're really looking to drive loyalty this year. I want to make sure that my designs are helping us drive loyalty. What recommendations do you have there? What sort of ceremony should I set up with our product owners so that I can make sure the designs are repeatedly driving this outcome? That's going to make people see that you're thinking strategically, and it's worth investing in further conversations with you, as cold as that may sound. The second tactic that you can use is fundamentally following the money. So every time you go to a larger town hall in your organization, when you have senior leaders talking at a fireside chat about what they care about, pay attention to the key terms they're using regarding client behavior or regarding how they make money. This is a really important way for you to align your design at a more tactical level to what senior leaders care about. So similar to how you're looking at the roadmap for terms, every time you hear your senior leaders talk, listen for terms that are repeated often around what the business is looking to do strategically. What segments are they looking at focusing on to make more money? Or what are some operational costs that they're talking about trying to reduce in terms of gaining efficiency? Those segments, those areas of cost focus, those are the terms you need to pull into your mind. So as you think about designing, you're referencing those terms often. So again, it's about pulling these signals from across the organization and incorporating them in your designs so you can show that you know how to design in context and you're thinking and speaking as strategically as possible with your stakeholders. The third thing that's really important for you to focus on is what gets measured. So similarly to the town halls where you may be dozing off a little bit, you may sometimes get pulled into these giant quarterly business reviews or annual business reviews where you have a CFO talking at you about what money was made last year and why and how it was important. And even though it's not talking about pixels and design trends and brand direction, what you can distill from that is critically important because it shows, looking backwards, how the company has made money. And it will also show you, looking forward, how the CFO thinks about making money. And on that slide that is on that screen, because we know there's always going to be a slide, are key metrics that show you how the finance team is thinking about how the organization is going to make money or save money. Pulling those key terms out, thinking about how the roadmap objectives align with those financial objectives is also another way for you to start to build that holistic picture about the economic engine that drives the business, and then how your designs are going to help superpower that engine in order to drive those outcomes at scale. So let's say you do all of those things and you manage to build somewhat of a picture, but you still feel a little lost. Some of the tactics are still missing for you. Then it's time to be direct. So again, review that context you already have, prepare your language, but there's nothing wrong at the end of the day with asking directly, whether it's to your direct manager or to your product partners. You can just say the following: I want to make sure that my design work is aligned with the outcomes that drive this business and are important to all our stakeholders. I have observed over time X, Y, and Z. So again, from that stakeholder discussions that we had earlier, from the context, pick 3 facts that you know. It could be, I have observed that we are increasing our costs and we're concerned about getting those down. I have observed that we are talking about loyalty a lot. Just show that you've listened and you've learned. So say, I have observed X, Y, or Z, and I want to make sure that our design portfolio continues to support this work. Can I take some time to review with you what I've designed, my hypothesis of how it supports these outcomes, and get some feedback? If you're part of a team and you're part of a culture that is serious about driving business outcomes, it's going to be hard for them not to say yes. So take that script, take this work, and try it out with your team, and I guarantee you're going to see a bit of change. All right, so that kind of wraps our review of outcomes. I hope you found this video helpful. Let me know in the comments below if you've tried any of these tactics, the wins you've had, or maybe even more of the challenges that you face. I'd love to be able to read your input and think about what we can talk about next. If you really like this video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe, and I would be very grateful for support along the way. I'm James Law from Design Kindly, here to help you become a more strategic designer from being a ticket taker. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.